It began with a murmur, a distant rumble that few recognized for the calamity it foretold. Then, the waters came. This was not the familiar seasonal swelling of a single river, a known adversary against which the people of Punjab have battled for generations. This was different. This was a nightmare made real. For the first time in the recorded history of Pakistan, the three great arteries of the land rose as one: Sutlej, Chenab, Ravi. They broke their banks simultaneously, a coordinated assault of nature that, honestly, defied all precedent. The land of 5 rivers was suddenly drowning under the fury of 3, a historic and terrifying spectacle that would forever alter the landscape and the lives of millions. The senior minister for the province, Mariam Aurangzeb, had to deliver the grim news to a stunned nation.
This is the biggest flood in the history of the Punjab.
Her announcement confirmed what people on the ground were already witnessing with their own eyes. The sheer volume of water was staggering. Ancient riverbeds, dry for decades and long since forgotten, were violently reclaimed by the churning currents. This was a force that did not just inundate, it consumed. It erased landmarks, it redrew maps, it turned familiar villages into islands of despair in a vast muddy sea. The scale was almost impossible to comprehend. The human cost of the river's rage was immediate and devastating. As the waters surged, they erased homes' livelihoods' futures in a matter of hours. The final tally from the Provincial Disaster Management Authority painted a picture of almost unimaginable loss. More than 2.4 million people spread across 3,129 towns and villages found themselves directly in the path of the deluge. The river Chenab was the most destructive, affecting 1,578 villages. The Ravi submerged 1,033. The Sutlej claimed another 518. Each number represented a community torn apart, a collection of families scattered, their lives irrevocably altered by the muddy torrent that had stolen their world. The statistics, though staggering, fail to capture the full scope of the human tragedy. Behind the numbers are stories of frantic escapes, of families clinging to rooftops, of children separated from their parents in the chaos. The official death toll in Punjab climbed to 41, with the national casualty count since the start of the monsoon season exceeding 700. These were not mere figures. They were mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters swallowed by the flood. As the floodwaters surged, an immense and desperate race against time began. The provincial government faced an unprecedented crisis and was forced to make agonizing decisions. To save densely populated areas from complete annihilation, authorities initiated controlled breaches of key flood bunds. These were not easy choices. They meant sacrificing some areas to save others. By strategically dynamiting embankments, engineers attempted to divert the ferocious currents of the Chenab-Ravi Sutlej away from major cities and into designated floodplains. Simultaneously, a massive humanitarian response was mobilized across the affected districts. The government established a network of 395 relief camps, hastily erected sanctuaries for the hundreds of thousands who had lost everything. These camps became sprawling cities of the displaced, where families huddled together, sharing stories of loss and survival. Alongside these shelters, 392 medical camps were set up and 336 veterinary camps, forming a critical front line against disease and suffering. Doctors and paramedics worked tirelessly to treat injuries to prevent the outbreak of waterborne illnesses, cholera, typhoid, and to provide care for the traumatized. The historic flooding was not the result of a single cause, but a catastrophic convergence of factors, a perfect storm that overwhelmed Punjab's natural and man-made defenses. It began with the skies. Unusually heavy and persistent monsoon rains lashed the upper catchments of the rivers, both within Pakistan and across the border. This relentless downpour saturated the ground and swelled the tributaries long before the main deluge arrived. The atmosphere itself seemed to conspire against the land, unleashing a volume of precipitation that pushed the river systems to their breaking point, setting the stage for the disaster that would follow. This natural phenomenon was dangerously amplified by human intervention. Following the heavy rains in occupied Kashmir, India made the decision to open all the gates of major dams on its side of the border. While such releases are sometimes necessary to protect the integrity of the dams themselves, the sheer volume and timing of the water sent downstream were devastating for Pakistan. An Indian government source confirmed the release, issuing a warning of the potential for downstream flooding. This massive influx of water into already swollen rivers acted like a supercharger, turning high flood levels into the exceptionally high flood conditions that proved so destructive. Climate experts were quick to point out that the behavior of the rivers themselves was highly unusual. Masood Lohar, an expert in climate change and sustainable development, described the floods in the eastern rivers as unprecedented. Sutlej Ravi. He noted that the situation was just as dire in the western river system, where the water level in the Chenab reached a staggering 1 million cusecs, a flow rate he termed very unusual. The rivers were not just carrying more water, they were behaving erratically, carving new paths and reclaiming ancient, abandoned riverbeds that had long been developed for agriculture or habitation, catching thousands of people completely off guard. This combination of intense rainfall, massive cross-border water releases, and abnormal river behavior created a catastrophe of a magnitude never seen before. It challenged every existing flood model and overwhelmed decades of infrastructural planning. The disaster was a brutal lesson in the complex interplay between nature-climate change and geopolitics. It demonstrated how vulnerable a downstream nation can be, not only to the whims of nature, but also to the actions of its neighbors. In the midst of the chaos and destruction, the individual stories of those affected painted the most vivid picture of the tragedy. For countless families, the flood was a thief in the night. One farmer from a village near the Chenab, now living in a relief camp, spoke with a hollowed-out look in his eyes.
We woke up to the sound of water. It wasn't rising slowly, it was a wall. We grabbed the children and ran for the roof. We watched as our home, everything we built for 30 years, was swallowed by the brown water. We lost our crops, our tractor, our cows. We have nothing left but each other.
The relief workers, hailed as heroes, shared a different but equally harrowing perspective.
For 3 days, we did not sleep. We were in the boat from dawn until long after dusk. You hear cries for help from all directions. You pull a child from the water here, an old woman there. But for every person you save, you see things you can never unsee. Homes collapsing into the current. Livestock floating lifelessly. You have to make impossible choices about who to help first. The weight of that stays with you.
Local officials found themselves caught between the fury of the rivers and the desperation of their people. Multan's deputy commissioner, Wasim Hamad Sindhu, became the face of official urgency, his voice broadcast across television and radio.
We're appealing to you, please. Move to the camps. The water is coming. We cannot stop it.
In the relief camps, a fragile sense of community formed among the displaced.
The first night was the worst. We were cold, wet, and terrified. But then, people started helping each other. A family gave us a dry blanket for the baby. The doctors here gave my son medicine for his fever. We have lost our home, but we have not lost our humanity. We are all in this together now. We pray together, we eat together. We hope that one day we can go back and rebuild.
The province, known as Pakistan's breadbasket, watched in horror as its most fertile agricultural lands disappeared under a thick blanket of silt-laden water. Vast fields of cotton rice sugarcane, nearly ready for harvest, were completely submerged. Climate expert Masood Lohar issued a stark warning that the damage could be permanent. Infrastructure, agricultural land, and even entire cities can be wiped off, highlighting the unprecedented risk posed by water entering previously abandoned riverbeds where farming had flourished for decades. The threat extended far beyond the fields. Lahore, Bahawalpur, Sialkot, Kasur found themselves at high risk. Healing these wounds will require more than just rebuilding homes and bridges. It will demand sustained psychological support and a collective effort to restore hope where there is now only despair. The strength and courage shown by the people of Punjab during their darkest hour provide the foundation on which a safer, more resilient future can be built. They have proven they can withstand the storm. Now, we must ensure they are never left so vulnerable again.